Hello, everyone. My name is Jinyan Ran, and we will do this evaluation meeting. The participants have Zhang Zimeng, Yang Yuxin, Alicia, and Nadia. Today, we are evaluating the 5 cybersecurity proposals that Group 3 presented on data breaches in universities. Let me establish a few ground rules before we begin. First, I encourage everyone to participate actively but respectfully. Second, please allow each speaker to complete their point before responding, though polite interruptions for clarification are acceptable. Finally, let us remain focused on evaluating each proposal based on clear criteria. We will use 3 main criteria throughout our discussion: cost, feasibility, and effectiveness. We may also bring in user acceptance where relevant. The agenda is simple. We will go through all 5 proposals one by one. We will identify strong points, weaknesses, and most importantly, whether the idea can be realistically implemented and why. At the end, we will compare the proposals and decide on the best single proposal or the best combination. So to begin, let me ask, what problem is Group 3 trying to solve? Zimeng, could you start us off?
Okay, the problem is clear. Universities store massive amount of personal, academic, and financial data, and data breaches are becoming more common. Their first solution is strong encryption. Encryption converts sensitive information into coded data that cannot be read without the correct encryption key. This distinguished between data at rest and data in transit encryption.
Okay, so for my perspective, the most compelling aspect of encryption is its effectiveness. If data is stolen, it becomes completely useless to the attacker. Neither MFA nor training can make the claim. However, a major criticism is cost. Encryption requires specialist software, hardware upgrades, and trained personnel to manage encryption keys. The proposal gives no budget estimate for a smaller university. That is a serious limitation.
Yuxin, we can't hear your voice. So I think Yuxin will continue evaluate the cost about this proposal. And I want to add a different angle. One of the limitations of encryption is that it does not prevent the initial breach. It only protects data after it's stolen. That said, taking effectiveness into consideration, I would say encryption is still very strong for protecting highly sensitive data like financial records or exam grades. Nadia, how do you think it?
I take your point, but feasibility is where this proposal falls short, to be quite frank. Not every university has the IT infrastructure or accept price. to implement full disk encryption across all systems. Furthermore, the proposal overlooks the fact that if the university loses the encryption key, the data is permanently inaccessible. There is no backup plan. That is a significant gap.
I want to win in here. I strongly believe that encryption is effective, but I'm not fully convinced it should be a top priority for most universities. The cost and complexity are simply too high compared to other solutions. My question to Zimeng is this. If a university has a very limited budget, would you still push encryption as a top priority, or only for the most sensitive data?
That's a fair question. I would say only for the most sensitive data, financial records, student ID numbers, exam grades, not for everything. And many cloud service already encrypts data automatically, so universities can start there without a huge investment. So I agree it's not the first step, but it's still necessary for high risk information.
I can see your point, but compared to MFA, encryption still takes longer to implement and requires ongoing maintenance. For now, I think we agree it is not the top priority. Let's move to the next proposal.
And the sorry, the next solution is multi-factor authentication. The problem they are addressing is that passwords alone are the weakest link. Over 18% of data attacks involve weak or leaked passwords. The solution is MFA, requiring something you know, like a password, plus something you have, like a code sent to your phone. They stated that MFA blocks 99% of automated cyber attacks.
From my point of view, this without a doubt the strongest proposal in terms of cost and feasibility. On cost, most platforms support MFA for free. No new hardware needed. On feasibility, students already have phones and setup takes less than 2 minutes. On effectiveness, 99% is impressive. The significance of this cannot be overlooked.
I agree in principle with most of what you have said, but I found it difficult to agree fully without addressing user acceptance. One possible issue is that the students found MFA annoying, especially if they have to verify their identity multiple times a day. The proposal said it should be mandatory, but it didn't explain how to handle resistance. It's a weakness.
I take your point, Zhang Ziming, but you have a point three. However, university can implement remember this device for 30 days option to reduce friction. Also comparing MFA to encryption, MFA costs almost nothing and works immediately, while encryption takes months. So if budget is take MFA clearly wins.
I actually want to push back a little on the user acceptance concern. In my experience, once students and staff understand why MFA is there, especially after a brief explanation of the 99% statistic, most accept it. The real problem is when it is badly implemented, like asking for a code every single login without any trusted device option. The proposal didn't discuss that, but it is solvable. So I would still rank MFA as one of the strongest proposals. Does anyone disagree with that?
No, I completely agree. The 99% figure alone makes it hard to argue against. MFA is highly effective, low cost, and easy to implement.
Good, let's move to the third proposal.
Okay, so the third proposal is regular security updates and patching. The problem is that out-of-date software contains a known vulnerability that hacker exploit. Their solution is automatic update. a regular patch schedule and awareness message, what they call the patch before attack initiative.
On effectiveness, I would say updates are absolutely essential. Without them, even the best encryption or MFA is useless because hackers can enter through unpatched holes. However, one major drawback is feasibility. University systems are often old, and updates can break compatibility. For example, a learning management system might crash during exam week. The proposal didn't address the risk at all.
I agree with Zanziman. Furthermore, the argument rests on the questionable assumption that all updates can be applied automatically without distribution. To be quite frank, small universities may not have a dedicated IT team to test updates before deployment. That said, for core systems like servers and firewalls, updates are non-negligible. The real issues is how to update without distributing classes. There is no explanation of that in proposal.
Okay, let me add another point. From a user acceptance perspective, students often click Remind Me Later on their personal devices. Posters and emails will not change that behavior, so this solution is only partially feasible. It works for university-owned devices, but not for personal student devices.
I think it'd be fair to say that we all agree updates are necessary, but they are more of a baseline requirement than an innovative proposal. The proposal's biggest weakness is that it did not engage with the hard problems, legacy systems, downtime, and compatibility. So I would not rank this as a top proposal, but I also would not recommend skipping it entirely. Agreed?
Yes, it is effective but not a standalone solution.
Okay, next proposal.
Okay, the next and fourth proposal is employee training and awareness. The problem they are addressing is a human error, which causes 95% of cybersecurity problems. Their solution is particle short learning games, simulated phishing tests, and building what they called a human firewall. No long, boring lectures.
On effectiveness, I strongly believe that training addresses the root cause, human behavior. Without training, even the strongest MFA can be bypassed if a user willingly gives away their code in a partitioning core. That said, one of the eliminations is sustainability. Students and staff may participate actively at first, but after a few months, interest can decline significantly. Measuring behavioral change is also very difficult.
I agree with Yu Xin, and taking costs into consideration, good training programs are not free. Designing games, running simulations, and analyzing results requires ongoing investment. Compared to MFA, training takes months to show results and is harder to quantify. So from a cost effectiveness perspective, MFA still comes out ahead.
Okay, but let me push back here. MFA cannot stop a user from willingly giving access. Only training can do that. A convincing phishing email MFA will not help if the user approves the login request. So on effectiveness against human threats, training is unique and you can do it cheaply. Free simulation, pacing tools, and short video access. The proposal approach is actually quite realistic.
I want to add something here. I think training's biggest weakness is not cost. It is sustainability and mirrorment. A university might run a workshop in September, but by November, most people have forgotten the content. The proposal mentioned simulated phishing, which is good, but it did not say how often or who runs it. That said, I still believe training is necessary, just not sufficient on its own. Nadia, you were going to say something?
Yeah, exactly. Training works better than when combined with MFA. MFA stops automated attacks. Training reduces human manipulation. That is a combination. I would not choose training alone. In fact, I think it would be fair to say that cybersecurity works best when technical and human solutions are integrated.
I agree with that. So MFA plus training is emerging as a strong theme. Let us keep that in mind. Last proposal.
Okay, the final proposal is access control and data limitation. The problem is that too many people have access to too much data. The solution has three parts. First, only authorized people can access sensitive data. Second, each person only sees what they need for their work. And third, data is separated by department so one breach does not expose everything.
On effectiveness, this is very strong. Even if a hacker compromises one account, the damage is limited because they cannot reach other parts of the system. However, one of the major drawbacks is visibility. Universities have thousands of users and hundreds of roles. Setting up permissions accurately takes months. And when staff change roles, permissions must be updated. That's heavy and administrative work.
I agree, and taking the budget into consideration, access control requires identity management software, regular audits, and trained IT staff. That is expensive. Smaller universities would struggle. Compare this to MFA. MFA much easier to implement. Compared to encryption, access control is more protective because it prevents exposure before a breach, but it also more complex to maintain.
One more concern, emergency situations. What if a lecturer needs urgent access to a student's record during a crisis, but the system denies access because of strict rules? The proposal did not discuss any override machine. That is a gap. However, separating data by department is excellent because it limits the blast radius. The part is very practical.
I'll be honest. I really like access control in theory, but in practice, it is a nightmare to maintain in a large university. People change rules constantly. The proposal did not address how you keep permissions up to date without a full-time team. So for me, this is effective but not realistic as a first step. Alicia, you seem to like it more. Do you disagree?
Yeah, I do not disagree that it's a complex, but university already have a rule-based access for their learning management system. Expanding that step by step is possible. Automated permission management tools also exist. Compared to training, access control works 24/7 without human error. That is a real advantage. I'm not saying that it should be the first priority, but it should not be ignored either.
Well enough. I still think complexity makes it a later phase solution, not the top priority. Let us move to the final decision. Let me summarize what I have heard. Based on cost, feasibility, and effectiveness, encryption is very effective but expensive and complex, not a top priority for most universities. MFA is cheap, highly feasible, very effective, a top contender. Updates is necessary, but more of a baseline requirement, not an innovative proposal. Training is addressing human error, hard to sustain, but pairs very well with MFA. Access control is effective in theory, but too complex for immediate implementation. So the real debate is MFA alone or MFA plus training. I would like to hear your views on this. Nadia, what's your position?
From my perspective, MFA alone is already excellent, but training adds protection against phishing and user mistakes, threats that MFA cannot stop. Since training can be implemented at low cost using free tools, I strongly believe the best combination is MFA plus training.
I completely agree. MFA stops automatic attacks. Training reduces human error. Together, they cover the two main attack vectors. I'm in total agreement with that combination.
I agree as well. Access control and encryption can come later. MFA plus training is the most realistic and cost-effective combination for most universities.
I also agree, but let me add, update must be done anyway as a baseline. There is not really a choice. So yes, from the five proposal, the best combination is MFA plus training.
I actually wanted to see if anyone would argue for MFA alone, because training does take time to show results. But after hearing everyone, I'm convinced the combination is better. The 95% human error statistic is real and cannot be ignored. So my vote is also MFA plus training. We have reached a clear decision. The best combination is multi-factor authentication plus employee training and awareness. Let me state the reasons based on our criteria. Cost. Both are affordable. MFA is nearly free. Low-cost training using free tools is possible. Feasibility. Both can be implemented within weeks or months without major infrastructure changes. Effectiveness. MFA block 99% of automated attacks. Training reduces human error, which causes 95% of cybersecurity problems. Together, they cover technical and human vulnerabilities. We also agree that regular security updates are a baseline requirement, and that encryption and access control are valuable for high-risk data, but are not immediate priorities for most universities. So far, we have agreed that this combination is the most practical and effective. That concludes our evaluation meeting. Thank you everyone for your contributions.